Hi there. Um, I um, I made a video there not so long ago describing my issues that I'm currently facing in my life, and went on about issues that I believe that need to be addressed in general society. My video was a little over an hour long, and I didn't plan on exactly how long I was going to do that video. I said what is exactly or nearly to exactly what was on my mind. The best way I could express it as best I could have, right? So I did that, and this is my second video. And in this video, I'm going to talk. I said some issues or general or issues that I believe need to be sorted in our society, um, in Ireland, and this would go into other countries as well around the world, but I'll just focus on Ireland for this one, and in this um and this what I'm going to be narrowing down and directing my focus on is in this video on in society is housing. And we're with housing, we're in a major housing crisis now, and there are many people, young adults, couples in society that who are looking to buy or rent a house. But I think a lot of people are really more interested in buying properties because they're settled down and want to move into a house, or and it would go into renting as well. Other people who just want to rent, they don't want to buy, but it varies. Um, but regardless of the circumstances, we do not have a enough houses to meet the demand. So the demand is outweighing the supply, um, because there's a massive demand for houses here in Ireland at the moment. And because of the way the housing policies have been implemented by our governments, with Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, um, with how they've been doing it over the years, a flip flop between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. We're now in the worst time period when in a housing crisis in Ireland, one of the worst in the history of the Irish state. I think it's one of the worst. I believe it is. Um, but I I know what would I think I know what would fix the housing crisis, or it would nearly fix it. If it doesn't fix it fully, it wouldn't be a million miles off fixing it. Um, and what I think would fix the housing crisis, my what I would say, like the things I would say that I think would fix it, would be unpopular, uncommon to say, and because the way things are done, or what I would say, wouldn't be, let's say, wouldn't be in agreement with the way things are done with the property market here in Ireland, and this does go to other countries, especially ones that are civilised like Ireland, ones that are where the economies are run like Ireland. They'd be probably running the similar principle or similar trend. But with that, I know what would fix the housing. I think I know, and I'll basically just somewhere I'll put it in simple. People would say, "Well, how would you fix it? How would you make the supply of houses outweigh the demand or hit the demand outweigh it? Let's say more supply than demand, so to have a surplus of houses once everyone is housed, all adults and everyone, children and everything. Well, the answer is, um, no individual. I'm talking on the very individual level. No individual should be owning more than one property. And so, like, we have landlords and landladies, like in Ireland, like people that are letting out properties. That's external from the ones that they live in. That they go home every day with their own kitchen, their own living room, their own bed and all that, and bedroom and all that. That's their own house. They stay in that. And that's grand. But the problem is the that individual owns another property elsewhere in Ireland or even around the world for that matter. The problem is that no individual should be owning more than one property. And the reason why is because a house is an absolute necessity, a need for everyone. Everyone needs a house. Everyone needs shelter. Everyone needs a roof over their head. Everyone needs a kitchen, a bedroom. Everyone needs shelter to go and be able to, stay in, to be able to vacate, to be able to like go to um, after working, or whatever the circumstances are at work. They should be able to go stay somewhere anyway. So to be able to fix housing would be to not have not individuals owning more than one property. No landlords and landladies should be allowed to own more than one house, not own them and not to let them out. And so people would say, well, then like if they were not to own more, like all the landlords and landladies, let's say we were to combine them all together from individual to individual to individual. If you were to like combine them all and then add them all the house that they own, because we have some landlords and landladies, individuals own more than one house, like or depending on them, you'd have an individual that might own four properties, and you have someone that owns seven or two or eight, or because it fluctuates in that. There's individuals owning quite a lot, and then there's others that own not so many, but they still own more than one. So basically, the individuals would have to stop would have to stop owning more than one house, and the houses that they would have to be transferred, the ones that they own multiples of, the ones that they'd be to letting would have to be transferred into councils. The councils would run the entire property market, and the councils would take the transfer and the jurisdiction of running the entire all of the houses, um, to be able to, and then once the councils or basically organizations on the organizational level, councils and agencies of the like, they would run the property market, where it would be set up into two sectors. One sector is for buying houses, and another sector is for renting houses. And yeah, because I agree with rent. Some people might not want to buy a house, because buying a house is a big step, even if you were to even if you were paying an adequate amount of money per month, and you were earning a highly paid job, and you still might not want to buy a house. Some people might not, because they want to rent so they can move out and go somewhere else in the future. People like to travel, move from house to house. They don't want to stay in one constant place, or you know, I understand that, so that should be there. So the council should run the entire property market on their own, and everyone only owning more than one house. That's the way to do it. To let should be prohibited, it should be made illegal or prohibited for individuals to own more than one house, or to be able to make profits and investments off of owning more than one house, where tenants are renting out the houses, and they are paid. The tenants are paying the individuals, the beneficiaries of landlords and landladies, the money that they owe per month. Because the thing about it is, like, I'll try and explain in simplest terms. When someone, like, basically when an individual buys a house, they would have saved a lot of money, and they would have, whatever way through working and other means, to buy a house. Um, I'm not against anyone buying a house or renting a house. Actually, that's fine. They can buy a house. Let's say someone did go and buy a house after saving a lot and working hard. That's grand. So they're in that house and everything like that. But let's say that individual that is in that house wants to go buy another house, and when they buy that another house, and let's say wherever that other house is, they're not going to live in that house, and they are going to let that house to tenants, so that they're going to collect money in rent. That's when I say, that's when I draw the line and say, no, that shouldn't be allowed. Individuals, if you own one house, on an individual level, this is for all people from any background, of any occupation, whatever way, any background in anything. Um, you're fine to live in one house, but buying another house, I just think is too far. It's just a bit too much, because instead of that, let's say instead of another person, an individual buying that house, that should be given to someone that is struggling or who can't even get a house, and adults who need, someone else who is an adult that urgently needs a house for shelter and all that, like, because everyone needs a house. That should be prioritized for individuals who can't get one, who are struggling if they can't to get one. It should be left in place for them, for those people. and the individual who, who has their own house, not being able to buy or to be able to buy another one, has their own shelter to be in, and councils and organisation on the organisational level, any agencies would be running the entire property market. And then I tell you, if it was done that way, think about all the houses that individuals own, landlords and landladies. Imagine if all of them, imagine all the houses that the multiple houses they own, the ones that they to let out, combine them all together and have the councils run them alone. Imagine the amount of supply. The supply would, I'd say, would nearly definitely outweigh the demand, and the demand, people would easily get housed in, and and our homelessness, or our homelessness would probably be abolished, if that was done that way, because the supply would outweigh the demand majorly, you know. Um, and yeah, I like that would be the way to do it. And then more money from the government would have to be pumped and pooled into the council so that they can run the entire property market properly, because obviously they're going to need some good level of support and money to be able to run the houses. We're talking about the entire property market, to rent and buy, you know, and that would be the way to do it. And like I'm explaining in the most simplistic terms I can to fix housing, for renting and buying. That would be the way I think would be to do it. And so then, if let's say all to let, all renting out houses was run by the councils and they organise an agencies, um, basically they could then people, like, safeguards can be put in place then, by them, so if anyone wants to, let's say, rent a house, someone that is not doesn't own a house, or who wants to buy a house, they want to buy a house, they're, let's say, living with their, let's say, guardians or parents, and their young adults want to go and buy a house. Well, then the councils would take into consideration of their occupation, their, obviously, their personal details, name, number, and what do they plan to do, what do they plan to do, are they in, what are they doing in academia, what are they working now, or what do they plan to work in, or, so all that kind of stuff. And let's say the person is working, and an individual that earns 500, let's say, €500 a week on net pay. So they're working in a job, they're earning €500 a week on net pay. So they're earning €2,000 a month on net pay, and this is net pay meaning after tax. This is money directly in their pocket after tax by their employers or whoever they work for. The councils should have a pattern or a structure set up so that a person that earns €500 a week should be put into a property where they're renting. If, let's say, they're renting, pay €500 a month on rent. So a week's pay on net pay should pay a month's rent, and that should be going for, let's say, maybe that should be going for buying a house as well, or even probably buying a house. There should be more, maybe a little bit more safeguards there. Maybe earn, let's say, €600 on net pay, and paying €500 over a mortgage, because mortgages, you're setting mortgages, is a long contract, or it's a long loan, which is like, 20 to 30 years. So that should be protected, like what I just said, with 600 paying euro per week, and then paying 500 a month. Then that would be for buying, and then for renting, I suppose we would keep it at the exact, a week's pay would pay a month's rent, and then outside, the other 3 weeks are nearly up to the month. The person would be earning €1,500 a week on net pay, and that would pay for the other costs in the house, like oil, gas, electricity, groceries for food, and all that, all other bills. And people would be able to live. People would be well able to live on that pattern, and people could budget money and be able to live happier in themselves. In that way, councils run them alone with that. Um, But see, I know that the councils in this country, in Ireland, that the councils actually do run a proportion of the property market, and even at that, the councils are actually pretty. I think that they're pretty poor. They're not really up to scratch, and I don't know if it's the councils themselves that don't that are, let's say, not that bothered, or not that are just a little bit, I won't say not bothered, but that are a little bit slackadaisy, or are they? Is it because they're actually not getting enough funding from the government, our government that are in power? They're not giving enough money to the councils around the country. It probably is a mixture of both, maybe, but I'd say it is the government probably that is causing that. But I'm not, I can't really pinpoint. I'm not really sure on that. But because even there are, I've seen campaigners outspoken people as campaigners, and people trying to get the right thing done in Ireland, where they've been putting up Facebook lives, and I've seen it in Limerick where there were council houses just all boarded up, council owned houses. They were council owned by the councils around Limerick, all boarded up, nothing being done with them. All the windows, doors, all boarded up. No one living in them, just boarded up, like as if they're abandoned, and maybe, you know, abandoned, but they're council owned. And it's like, I'm trying to think, why can't you put families, or people into those houses that are all boarded up and nothing being done with them. Like, I even saw it, like, there was like there was a campaigner in Limerick who was around Darris Key, and he was saying, why can't they put them in there? And I totally agreed with him, you know, and why they didn't. That was put up on Limerick's Word in the Street. If you don't know Limerick's Word in the Street, you should look them up on Facebook. They address really great issues, actually, on major issues in our society, not just with housing, but with other major issues that major problems that need to be addressed by our government and by organisational level agencies as well. And they do emphasise housing very well. So I am a supporter of Limerick's Word in the Street. Like I said in my first video as well, I did briefly mention them. But yeah, back to the what I was saying. Like, I've seen it myself. I've seen houses around here in Ireland. I was passing around County Tipperary, and even around Kilkenny. I'm living in Kilkenny now, County Kilkenny. But I've seen houses, and I in the last place I was in as well. Um, Driving around, I've seen not well. I wouldn't say, I don't know if they're houses or not. I think some of them are, but there were buildings. I'll call them buildings. There were buildings there, abandoned. You could tell they were abandoned. They were boarded up. You could see weeds and grass and things growing in them, and like as if they've been there a long time, and nothing is being done with them. And I'm kind of like, why can't you put people in them? We're in a housing crisis, and you can't put them in them. People who need a roof over their head, like that. I mean, the building is already built, so it wouldn't necessarily have to be knocked down. It just needs to be updated, with there, and then to do that, like, depending on the condition of the materials, and the rocks, and the stones and all the material of the building, and that maybe it would have to be knocked down if it was too deteriorated. But I mean, it shouldn't have got to that stage. I mean, it wouldn't have been like that at the start. Like, it wouldn't have gotten to that deterioration if they were maintained and run properly with the right safeguards in place, even for the building itself. You know. So yeah, this does need to get looking into. And it's shocking. Like, I've seen it with my own eyes. I don't even have to go on the internet and research or go and look them up. I've seen it with my own eyes going around. And even if you were to probably go around, drive a certain distance, or even walk a certain distance, depending on where you're located, you probably see buildings that are just abandoned. So yeah, um, it needs to get sorted majorly, and our government need to act on it. So that'll be the way to do it. Um, Councils or organisations on the organisation level, like agencies and that, run the entire property market. And so basically, what would have to happen is that landlords and landladies that are, making profits, investments off of, rent, out of renting houses. If it was to be run in my way, or my pattern, similar to my structure, or on the structure of what I'm saying, they would, they would have to, let's say, transfer their houses, or I'd probably call them give up, or transfer their houses, the multiples that they own, and transfer them to the councils, and the councils deal with it from there to cater for people who don't have a roof over their head, you know. And I understand that it's a big change. It's going to be a big change for the landlords and landladies. that would have to stop owning, suddenly or close to suddenly have to like transfer their houses. Not the houses that they live in, of course. They can stay in the houses that they live in, that they permanently live in, to go home if that's where they live. Like if they live there after they go to work, or whatever the circumstances were with work, or just staying in that house. If they're living in that house, and they're just there, they're not living there under whatever, whoever else, if they're on their own or whether or not on their own, they can stay in that house, because everyone needs a roof over their head, of course. But what I'm saying is that them individuals owning um, houses that are external from the one that they live in, they'd have to transfer them to the councils, and then everyone would be owning one house then, and the landlords and landladies, like of all levels, all tiers, because it goes like there's some landlords and landladies in Ireland that own ridiculous numbers of houses. Individuals owning so many, like 10 plus, from individual to individual, and there's some that own three or four. But imagine combining all landlords and landladies, all the houses, combining them all into one, like of all of them, then and the councils run them all in each county, like the Dublin or Limerick or Cork would run each, depending on where the houses would have to be transferred in whatever county. That would sort out the housing. Everyone would be housed. The supply would outweigh the demand. I think if it was done in that way, it would nearly. Wouldn't be a million miles off, and the housing would be sorted, and with the safeguards in place, for a week's pay would pay a month's rent, a week's pay, a net pay for everyone would pay a month's rent, and if they're working, and if they're not working, then have put them in another place for accommodation, with with supports and caps on people who want to rent a house. So if someone was on job seekers allowance, let's say, and wanted to rent a house to move out, then if there was no house to rent that was, let's say, 200, around €200 per month, well then if they were going to be in a house that was going to be 400, let's say, a month, but they were earning 200, then that would be the other 200 would be supported by the state, by the government, to fund them until they find work or whatever the circumstances are, like things like that, safeguards to protect people, to protect people who, to protect people and help people get accommodated. That's what would help, things like that. But it is a big change, and I understand that what I'm saying is unpopular, it's uncommon, and it wouldn't be. I might not agree with people who, they might not like say, like, people would say, oh, the landlords and landladies, they earned it. They earned, like, the people who bought up, who bought another house to let, they earned it. They saved up a lot of money. They made a lot of effort to save through working. They made a lot of effort to pay the deposit and invest, and they took time out of their hands and all that, and I understand that. I agree. I'm not against people saving money. I'm not against people investing. People can invest on anything. I'm nothing against investing. Like, if you were, let's say, you are investing in your starting your own business, and you want to, let's say, sell laptops, and you own loads of laptops, or you're in a situation where you own loads of laptops and you sell laptops and make profits off that. Nothing against that. And in fact, I'm not against anybody owning more than one material, or more than any material or any resource, except for properties. It's just a property is just owning more than one property on the individual level is too far. I think it's just a little bit much. It's just a bit much, because other people out there need one. Other people, like someone, let's say an individual owns three houses. One person owns three houses. Like, and then there's some other person out there who owns none or can't get one, struggling to get one, while there's someone owning three. It's not right. And that, like, what would, the way that would be the right thing to do in that circumstance is that that person who owns three houses, they would transfer two of those two houses. The one, let's say one of those houses being part of the tree is the one they live in themselves. Transfer two of those houses to the councils. The councils would then be able to help people and cater for people on the organisational level, to help others who don't have a roof over their head. On it, people who are on the zero level, on a zero, living in a house or can't get accommodation, then the council will be able to put them in one. So it'd be 0 to 1, 0 to 1 for that other one. And then that person who owns three would own one. Then I know it's a big change. I understand it would be a big change, for the way things are done, and a lot of our TDs and politicians, government officials, and all that in our government are landlords or landlady beneficiaries. They're housing beneficiaries already, So they would have to give up their houses as well. Literally, everyone would have to give up not give up their own individual house, give up the houses that they own multiples of outside of their own individual house. You'd have to give them up and transfer them to the councils. And people could say then, well, if you were to do that, then what about the cost, the value of or the price of the house? Are they just going to give them away for free? Like do the landlords or the people that own more than one house, should they not get paid for it? Like they can't just give it away for nothing. I agree with you. I agree with whoever would say that to me. Let's say they were to give away one of their houses to the councils, and that let's say that house was let's say the price of that house or the value was 300,000 euros. I agree that the tenants or the person should be getting that 300,000 euros. The person who owns that, well, see, you'd have to give them the tenants or the landlords and landladies who own that house. They'd have to be paid the value of the house. They'd get paid all that money in full, and depending, yeah, they'd get paid that, and then the councils would take it from there. You know, the councils would have to pay that. They would have to like you know um take it off them, and then the councils pay the landlord or whatever way it would work. Whatever they would have to pay the landlord or landlady 200 and 300,000 or whatever. Like some way it would have to be done where they're getting that 300,000, and uh, then like they could make that money back or make whatever way it would work. Then that house that would be owned by the councils would be all transferred into the uh, into the themselves running it with tenants, whether they buy it or rent it. The councils would set up the two categories, two for the housing, then one for buying and one for renting, because some people might not want to buy a house at all; they just want to rent. Like that's what I was saying. So I was saying that as it was, but that would be the way to do it. Um, councils run the entire property market. No individual owning more than one house, and everyone owning one. And of course, then people can save up. Whenever it was run in that way and transferred in that way, um, people would be able, like people, the quality of the houses would be different. Then the quality of the house would be different. Like you'd have, like if people wanted to update their house or give it more luxuriousness, more luxury, let's say, like they wanted to, for example, um, have their countertop is a standard countertop that's made that's nothing special, nothing fancy, but it's not like anything bad either. It's average material of wood. Let's say it's a wooden countertop, or made out of metal or just general material like steel and wood. Well, if people wanted to update that and say, I want to have a marble countertop, and they were looking up like designs, and they wanted to have it designed, a kitchen in a certain way. They wanted their kitchen to be marble and wanted to be a very nice looking kitchen, like with and fancy with marble material, and very and they had the money to do that. I agree that people can update their houses in that capacity where they wanted to have a marble floor or a marble this, and like if they saved up enough. But then if people in that weren't so that weren't in other people that couldn't afford that, let's say they were, let's say, earning whatever they're in their job, they're in a house that wouldn't be as higher standard, but in quality, but would have, let's say, a wooden one or whatever. Like I mean, then they can eventually, if they want to get a better house, then they can save up money for their own house that they're in, you know, to be able to update anything they wanted. But the thing is, everyone is housed. Everyone is housed, regardless of the quality of the houses. If you were to combine them all, everyone is housed, and then we can work on updating the houses. Then, like people who are probably not as financially earning as much money might not be able to afford updating their kitchen and that. But the principle is they are housed. They are housed, and they can, it'd be grand, or they're fine in that way. Um, like let's say there was someone in a house where there's a cooker. The cooker was old, and they wanted to update it, get a modernized cooker. Just grant, I've nothing against that. That's fine, but they can update that, or but that's for people that like save money in the houses that they own. They can update any materials or any like appliances in the house that need updating. But it's just as well. I'm just like I have an issue with individuals owning more than one house. and people can have different quality of houses, of course. Like I was saying, there's the issue is not with people having better houses if they want to update it and that. Um, it's to do with people owning more than one property is what I have the issue with individual on the individual level, on the very individual level. I'm saying, so that to cater for all other individuals then to be housed, you know, that would be the way to do it. Um, yeah, like I know what I'm saying might be triggering, it might be sensitive to people that are highly involved, let's say, in investing in housing in whatever form or another they're in. They might not want to, they wouldn't want to, you know, do that change because this has been the way it is for a while. But I think this would fix housing on a major level, safeguards in place and all that. Like, um, I I think that's I said yeah, this is about half an hour now. This I think I've said enough on that. I mightn't have said exactly everything. Um, I think I'm not sure. Actually, I can't remember if I said this or not, but I'll say it now. And as well, actually, there's another point as well. If things were to go wrong in the house, let's say as well, if let's say the councils were running the entire property market alone, if things and the tenants or the people living in the if they're for renting the tenants, let's say, but people living in the house that they're in, if appliances went wrong, let's say a cooker broke down in someone's house, and it was they needed a new cooker, and the cooker was going to cost €1,000. Let's just say €1,000. Um, the councils would be able to replace that cooker, um, probably a good replace that, repair it. If they can't repair it, then replace it. Replace a brand new cooker for the person in the house. Probably with no bother because there'd be a lot more money pooled and a lot more money resourced and put into councils to run the whole market if it was run adequately and efficiently by the government to help everyone then. Um, yeah, that would do it. Like that's what I mean. If councils were running it, then they could replace any appliances that needed replacing, and if there was a big sum of money involved, regardless, they'd be able to replace it because it's not coming out of an individual's pocket. It's coming from the organisation, and it doesn't hit directly into an individual's pocket. The thing is, with landlords and landladies, individuals, let's say, to letting houses out. And let's say the tenants, if that was to go wrong, let's say not the count in a house where the councils aren't running that house or letting it out or whatever to rent it or for people that are living in it. If it was being run by a landlord or landlady, the landlord or landlady is not if that they're probably not going to want to pay €1,000 because that's coming out of their pocket directly. The landlord and landlady would have to actually pay that money out of their pocket directly because it's on their obligation. They own the house. If things go wrong, it'll be on their lease or the contract with the tenants and that. And they wouldn't want to do that. And you know, it dents into the landlord and landlady's pocket a lot. I know that they'd signed up for that, but you have some situations in Dublin. I know that there's certain. I know people who've been in situations where things needed to be replaced, fridges needed to be replaced, or the fridge was not working, and the landlord and landlady, they were informed about it. The landlord and landlady wouldn't do anything about it. They wouldn't actually fix the fridge. They wouldn't replace the fridge for that person, and the person was just left with a broken fridge, and just not replacing the fridge. It's just ridiculous. Like that's one example, but I say there's more examples. But that's just one that I know of. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say who the person is, but that's just one example I know. But the thing about it is, if the councils were running that, or pay if that person was paying rent to the councils instead of the council running that thing instead of landlords and landladies to letting it out to the person, they'd be able to replace that fridge more. There'd be more safeguards and more um, protective measures to have tenants be getting replaced on appliances and stuff that would need replacing. Like landlords and landladies are gonna be hesitant and not wanting to pay for things. It depends. Obviously, the higher the cost, or the higher the bill, or the higher the amount of money to replace something in the house, the more the landlord and landlady wouldn't want to, have it replaced. And also another thing as well is that Um, Landlords and landladies, I would say it's a common trend. It's not. I'm not targeting all individuals, but or all of them. I'd say there's some decent landlords and landladies who make their houses be run well to let out. I'm nothing against, I'm not saying all, there are good landlords and landladies out there who genuinely want their house, up to scratch for their tenants. But there might be, there could be ones out there. I'm not sure if there is, but there probably could be ones out there, at least one anyway, where they would probably, if something had to be serviced in the house, if, they would probably pay someone. They'd probably pay the cheapest amount of money, the cheapest costs to have it done, and that job, the cost of might not outweigh the job done, and there's still problems with it, or it's only fixed to a certain proportion where it's not fixed right on that needing to be fixed. Um, well, the councils would be able to pay whatever amount, even if it's expensive or deemed expensive to fix that one issue or one problem or problems in the house. The council would be able to pay it no problem because they'd have more money resourced, pooled, and it wouldn't be coming from an individual's pocket. Um, yeah, like it's just that individual, like landlords and landladies, you know, individuals having the say or having the, I guess the control, probably control. I'm not sure if that'd be the correct word, but I'm going to probably use control to the is probably more accurate. That to be able to who have someone in there to fix that. It just isn't efficient if the job isn't done right. And who suffers? The thing about it is if a tenant is renting out a property or someone is renting out a house and things are wrong in the house, like and the appliance or the errors and the problems aren't fixed properly, even when they addressed it to their to their to the owner of the house, and it's not done right. Who suffers the worst out of that? Who suffers the worst if things are not done right in that house? Who's like I'm saying directly? Who suffers as a person or people in the house if that's not done right? The answer is quite obvious, isn't it? The tenants suffer. The landlord and landlady or the people landlords and landladies who don't do the right job in that circumstance, they're not really suffering or feeling any effects. And why is that? Because they're not living in the house. They're not living there. They're not they're not living in it, so they're not going to be they're not affected by it directly because they're not living in it, you know. So they'll have their own house. They're probably going to have their own house you know they're going to probably have their own house looked after and up to scratch and up to nick before doing it for their tenants. You know, they're going to look after their own place first before the paying other costs for tenants. You know, it's just that's how it is. But councils wouldn't have to worry about looking after their own because it's not run on an individual basis, an organizational basis. You know, um, so the tenants, no tenants or no one living in a house should have any of those issues if things go wrong. The right job and the right price, whatever the cost, should be even if it's expensive, even if it's expensive, but it's going to get the job done, it should be paid, and that should be done that would be done efficiently, effectively by the councils running them, and or you know that would be the way to do it. Um, Yeah, like that's what would fix housing. I think if I left out anything, or if I didn't mention anything on any other points or any points I could make to add to it, well, um, apologies if I can't, because I can't think of any more to really emphasize. I didn't even make a plan, or I didn't even make a time length or a plan on what I was going to say. I did this on its own course again, and if I repeated myself and a lot of the stuff again, well, sorry about that as well because I have a habit where I do like I can't say the same thing over and over because I'm new to this saying things in videos. First video I might have been saying things, and if it's in this one as well, well okay, so I'll just pick up from it and learn. But I just think that's would be the way to run it. So to sum up on it, I'll sum up what take away from this video is to have housing run by councils and agencies alone and not having people, individuals, regardless of their background, who they are, or their occupation, regardless, no individual should be owning more than one house. So, on the grounds that everyone needs a home, a roof over their head. They can own people, individuals can own more than one of anything else. Own more than one TV, more than one laptop, um, more than one of anything else that is just not an absolute necessity, um, for for than other people. But like say they can own more than one. They can own more than one PlayStation game. They can own, let's say, 4 PlayStation games, or own as many PlayStation games as they want. And they can own as many of them as they want, because it's like a PlayStation game isn't a need. If there's someone that owns more than, let's say, 20 PlayStation games, and someone out there doesn't own one, someone else, well, it's not to the capacity of a property. A property is just a need for everyone. Everyone needs a roof over their head. It's as simple as that. And yeah, that's it's basically the way to sum it up. And yeah, thanks for listening to me again. Um, I'm a little bit more. I'm expressing myself, I think, a little bit more on issues, because the first video I done, I was a little bit um, maybe pausing here and there. Maybe I was doing it less in this one, but or maybe I'll see. Like, I will maybe go over this video and see and get it out there and upload it. Um, and that. Um, but yeah, thanks for listening. And for people who are listening, if you don't like, if there's people out there, let's say, as landlords and landladies, or people generally, let's say, that are involved in investing in houses. I'm not directly attacking any of you on this. I'm not directly doing it, attacking anyone. I don't want to attack anybody, and I don't want conflict with anybody. So so if I do, if people are, let's say, triggered and sensitive to what I'm saying because they're involved in being an investor in housing, in relation to what I pointed out here, I don't directly to attack here, and if you have anything to say, like in a, let's say, in a polite way, or in a, let's say, in a discussive manner, then you can put it down in the comments, and I'll be willing to discuss that then further. Um, but I'm not. If I did trigger anybody, I didn't intend to do that. I'm just saying these. The reason I'm saying these things is because it's the right thing to do. I feel it's the right thing to do, and it's the truth. I'm expressing the truth. And the truth is what I abide by. So yeah, I'll leave it there, and yeah, I'll talk to you. Uh, talk to you later on, and yeah, we'll see you.